We are back live to Political Junkies. We just had Councillor Stephen Chase from Ward 9 to talk about the public squares bylaw that got rammed through council last night. And all three readings were read at the same night. I haven't seen that in a while. André Faust is live. He was a member of Occupy Fredericton, and he's going to talk on behalf of them right now. André, thank you so much for joining me on such short notice.
Well, great to be with you there, I guess.
Excellent. So as I debriefed you earlier, a bylaw respecting public squares. We just had Stephen Chase's response about the bylaw, or basically, or more specifically, Phoenix Square being land that surrounds City Hall, that people can't build structures on Phoenix Square. This is where Occupy Fredericton started. André, what do you think of council last night ramming through one bylaw, two bylaws, and three readings of bylaws all in one night?
Well, I think they're still in high school running the SRC, the Student Representative Council in high school. I mean, as Stephen says, it's rare that they, ram something that quick. And I like to, he says an emergency. Well, he didn't define what an emergency is. Now, I know from the inner circles that Occupy had no intentions of setting anything up in the next little while. But the way, the flavor that Steve seems to have come, it was almost, he was implying that Occupy was going to set up camp. That wasn't going to happen. So there was no immediate threat. So I don't know where they get to use that word emergency. That's one thing you got to keep in mind. He did not define what was meant by emergency. Now, what they're doing is setting up a precedent there. Now, right now in McMinimum Court, there is an issue, as what we had talked about a developer trying to set up. So, that's what's going to happen for McMinimum Court. The developer is going to say, look, guys, let's get this reading done really quick. We're just going to back up a bit. I mean, what were they afraid of not going to the public about that?
Is this democratic, André, to not have public dialogue?
No, I mean, I'll tell you, the way that I look at that, and this is what I've been finding since the 70s to now, what our whole society has been moving. It still calls itself a democracy, but when you look at the properties of the actual concept, what's taking place is that we're actually moving into more authoritative, totalitarian fascist states, that everything is regulated. And that's one of the key things, and now we keep saying we're doing it for democracy, we take a look at the Charles LeBlanc situation, charter problems. Look at Occupy, the missing clause. I mean, I don't know if Steve Chase was on council or was involved in the decision-making, but the missing clause. I mean, basically what they did, they wrote a law without writing a law. When they gave the carte blanche to the mayor to go ahead and tell city employees to tear down the facility. But there was no law that allowed them to do that. We hear justifications from, his ooga booga worship. I hate that word worship. I don't bow down to any human. And Brad is a human. He holds a role, and that's all that I recognize, not anything, on the status part of it. But, we have, Woodside saying, well, we don't want to go to court in this matter because of taxpayers' expenses. Well, when you have a question that surrounds legal, it serves the public interest to have that resolved. And what occupied it...
André, I just want to ask one more question. I asked Stephen this, and this was a question from Brad Cross to Councillor Chase, and I want you to answer it as well. Is it ethical to have three readings of the same bylaw in the same setting apart from the legality of it, and why? And so I guess Stephen Chase replied and said that this is legal and it had to be done. What do you think? Is this legal?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't answer that, but I will give a lay interpretation. I've just read the Municipal Act in regards to that, and there's a lot of vagueness surrounding that. I guess there's a lot of circumstances that has to be looked at. But the question that you asked, is it ethical? No, absolutely not. It's not ethical, to ram, because the intention of the three reading is exactly to allow people to have input, whether one agrees or does not agree. It's that process that allows for the public to respond to it. And they didn't give that opportunity. Instead, they took a unilateral decision all over their cup of coffee or whatever they do in council and come up with this, this preposterous idea of, banning but not giving the public a chance to it.
Andre, is this going to be a make or break for any wards on incumbents that were there last night and put this through? Do you feel the public is going to look and say, hey, if you ram this bylaw through, what's to say that you're not going to ram, like you said, McMinimum Court through or another controversial bylaw?
Well, that's exactly the point. You associate me with Occupy, but really Occupy is not the issue here. The issue is the three readings in one session. That's the issue here. It has really nothing to do with Occupy. I guess it's by any means necessary kind of decisions. Damn the consequences. This is what we want. This is a very dangerous precedent to set because if we don't put a stop to it now, we can expect that, at some point in time it's going to be reused again. Like I say, I'm going to backtrack. The whole gist of Stephen Chase was an emergency. Well, where was the emergency? Even what he had said, the place is under construction, so, for at least a little while, the public's not going to have access to it, whether it's an occupied camp or whatnot. So what I'm saying is there was no, pressing matters to have this thing resolved right here and now.
Do you think that this should have been a decision that the incoming council made? I asked this as Councillor Chase, and he said that he's just taking care of some loose ends, but and cited that it would be another month and it was an emergency. Do you think the next council could have done this if it was truly a big issue?
Well, this is not an overly complicated, mind-bending, need 3 years of law school decision to make. The new council would have been more than capable of making a decision based on the facts. This quick movement, I heard fear in Stephen's voice. I think these guys are completely delusional. They see the Occupy movement as some, mighty power that's going to come in and take over. And like I say, reality is from the discussion at the Occupy level, there was never ever any discussions to, reoccupy. And, turning the hands of the clock back, back in January there was the discussion of taking down the encampment at the end of January. Brad's knee-jerk response didn't allow that to happen. Now, did he do it at the time for a public relations move or not? I guess only Brad could answer that himself. But, Occupy was never unreasonable in any of this here. If we look back, Occupy put on the table when it came to the Christmas tree. They downsized to accommodate, the Christmas ceremonies. And then, I keep bringing back up that missing clause. That's a serious matter.
Andre, just another question from a listener. Your buddy Luke Skywalker, he asked questions a couple of weeks ago. Luke Robertson says, why does Andre think that the protesters need a permanent encampment downtown instead of an ordinary protest?
Well, the question is not, even in Occupies, it wasn't, the intent wasn't for a permanent. Let's look at it, strategically. It's a high visible area, and to what Occupy was trying to bring the attention to, that was an ideal place. We could, have stuck it out in back of Lower Bartibo where no one sees you, like the situation in Newfoundland. Their Occupy camp, they didn't do anything, but it was out of sight, out of sight, out of mind. The thing is, I guess the bigger picture, is that our world is going into a state. We've got recessions. I mean, Fredericton hasn't felt it yet, but I mean, we start to see the Harper cutbacks, the Alward cutbacks. Eventually, that's going to trickle back into, and when issues start hitting people's own pocketbooks, that's when they're going to understand what Occupy was about. I mean, some people are in total disbelief. They don't think it's going to happen. It's happening. The gap between the rich and the poor is getting closer and closer. I mean, if we take a look in Fredericton, we keep upping the cost of living in Fredericton. Well, that's going to start to displace some of the native Frederictonians, senior citizens on fixed incomes. So property taxes starts going up. This starts going up. They get to a point where they can't afford their house. They either have to let it go for taxes or they have to, sell their houses. And we're getting, that kind of deadly inflation is happening here in Fredericton. That's on and the middle income earners. I mean, the actuality is that we're losing buying power of our dollar. Even the person making 88. Well, not to deviate, but just figures that I received from the New Brunswick Health Council is health-wise, Fredericton is scoring very, very low. Given what the appearance is supposed to be. We have more overweight. We have a high teenage pregnancy rate, and those are things that are supposed to be showing up in economically depressed areas. But
Andre,
are we economically depressed? But we just look like we're not.
Yeah, Andre, just talking. Have you spoken to any other people that were on Occupy, and what are some of their comments here on this bylaw being rammed through? What have you been hearing from some of your friends and just people on this bylaw?
Well, this bylaw has been rammed so friggin' quick is that I just learned of it, just several hours ago. Thanks to social media is, how I learned, and immediately, I went through the municipal act and the municipal plans and the documents, related to see, what authority that they have, what it is they circumvent a system. I mean, the three readings is to allow people to respond to it. Ramming it in the one day did not allow any response, pro or against. And that's what becomes undemocratic. There was no immediate threat to any dangers to buildings, structures, or people. So therefore, you can take that emergency argument and stick it where the sun doesn't shine, because it's a fallacy of reasoning. There was no threat for this to be an emergency.
If you're elected on May 14th in Ward 6, will you be ramming any the bylaws first, second, and third reading through council very quickly?
That would never happen. It would never happen. Unless, there's a known terrorist that's going to level Fredericton to cinders. But short of that, I would never interfere in that process. It's quite au contraire. My position is to give the community the fullest, time for participation. We're coming up with the bylaw review, and that's something that, as a councillor, one can't do themselves. In order for each of the wards to protect themselves, the members of that ward has to be involved in that process. People not coming to the meetings, that'll mean, by not coming to the meetings, what it'll mean is that people that have, financial stakeholders in the given wards will probably be the ones that'll have the bylaws enacted to suit their benefit. So, on the bylaw review, I encourage, the residents, whether it's from my Ward 6 or any other ward, to be on top of that, because this is where you decide the future of your ward, how it's going to grow, what it's going to look like for, 2016 and beyond.
Mm-hmm. One quick question. We're almost out of time. If they did it like usual and did first reading, second reading, third reading, do you think there would have been a big public response and a big public outcry?
Well, given what Fredericton, I think we would have seen both sides, the pros and the cons of, restricting public places. I think we would have seen something legislated that would be maybe a little bit more amicable to fit certain situations. The focus is on, I haven't seen the final, the final copy, so I can't really, say on, how much, what all it encompasses. Does it mean all public places? Well, there's a nice way to say, well, they're homeless. I remember on the homeless.
All right, Andre, thank you so much for being on the show today. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for another edition of Political Junkies. If you have any questions or comments, tweet me, Justin Marshall, 8. Till next week, Tuesday at 6. So long from Political Junkies live on CHSR 97.9 FM, Fredericton, New Brunswick.